Fully submerged in the ice-cold water, under a thick layer of ice, but still conscious, the skier's body temperature dropped to a record low of below 14 degrees Celsius. The woman had no chance of survival, when suddenly, her pulse got going again. In this video, I'll share 8 incredible survival stories.
She survived? Guys, welcome back to new videos. Today with the luckiest people who survived the impossible. My name is Mats, we are the Hey Squad, the best community in the world. And this video will be crazy, incredible, okay? You will not believe your eyes.
That are hard to believe. Viewer discretion is advised.
Thank you, man.
A British parachuting instructor, Michael Holmes, was preparing for his 3rd jump in a day. He double-checked his gear and had his colleagues recheck it for him. Michael had around 7,000 successful jumps under his belt. On that day, in 2006, the instructor was supposed...
Yeah, when it's like, you have done it 7,000 times, this is like a big routine, then you have to even be more careful, because then it's like routine, and then sometimes you care less, you know, and... yeah, and then something can happen.
To film a tandem flight over the New Zealand town of Taupo. When the plane reached an altitude of 4,600 meters, the skydivers jumped. Michael circled the tandem couple to take the best photos and then opened his parachute. However, instead of a steady descent, the man got caught up in a violent swirl. His main parachute got tangled and wouldn't open. So, the man detached it to open the extra one. Its canopy wouldn't detach for some reason though, and Holmes continued falling.
He's circling
to cut off the suspension lines with a knife, but was unable to raise his arms due to the speed of the fall. Michael barely managed to look at his altimeter and realized he was done for. 6 more seconds passed, and Michael Holmes hit the ground. But when Michael's friend landed nearby, he saw Holmes lying in a blackberry bush, fully conscious. The man was immediately taken to the hospital, where he was diagnosed with a crushed left foot and ankle, on which he landed, as well as broken ribs and a punctured lung. But if Michael had fallen directly onto the ground or into the water from such a height, he would have most likely died on the spot.
No way, the blueberry bush saved his life? Oh, what do you want to say?
It was a coincidence that saved his life. But no bush will save you if you've crashed inside an active volcano. In November of 1992, cinematographers Michael Benson and Chris Duddy went to film a volcanic cone named Pu'u'o'o on the Hawaiian Islands. One of Hollywood's best pilots, Craig Hosking, agreed to take them to the mouth of an active volcano. But the moment they approached the crater, the helicopter started falling right into the volcano. Everyone on board was preparing to die.
No way. Is it like because of the air pressure or something that helicopters don't work? This is like the same reason like helicopters are not working like in the top of Mount Everest, because like a lot of people asking, okay, when so many people are dying on Mount Everest, why is there not a helicopter? Because it's not possible in that height. It's a big risk because of the air pressure and that stuff. So it's not possible up there. And so could it be like in the air above a volcano, because like air pressure and all this air consistency is something different, you know?
However, by some miracle, the helicopter didn't end up plunging into the fiery lava. Instead, it fell onto the hard ground.
Yeah, but it's so hot!
Moreover, the people remained virtually intact in the air crash. The scene of the disaster turned out to be located in the very spot where fresh air was flowing into the crater. Otherwise, the men would have choked on the poisonous gases produced by the volcano. These coincidences saved their lives. Apart from that, they were only 90 meters below the crater top, so things didn't seem that bad. It was an illusion, however. When the men tried to climb the slope, they got badly injured by the spiky hot stones. Moreover,
yeah, you're panicking, but you have to do anything, otherwise you will die. But the stone is so hot, so you get burned. But under adrenaline, you're like possible to do things you couldn't even have imagined before.
The lightest touch made the stones shift, so the people were at risk of falling into the boiling lava every second. The thick gases and vapors stopped the men from seeing anything, so they soon lost track of each other. Pilot Craig Hosking miraculously managed to get back to the crashed helicopter and call for rescuers. The rescue team, in its turn, was just as lucky to notice and pick the pilot up on the same day. Benson and Duddy, on the other hand, were stuck on the wall, and spent the following night in agony, listening to the sounds of lava boiling at 1,000 degrees Celsius beneath them. On the following morning, Chris Duddy dared to climb higher, but Michael Benson deemed it too dangerous and stayed where he was. A few hours later, something like a human body swooshed past him and fell into the lava. The man got overtaken by despair. He was barely holding on upon a tiny ledge, convinced that his friends had died and that he was going to follow suit.
No.
Benson spent 2 days without food in the pouring rain. When the man felt he just couldn't go on anymore, a rescue...
But the rain has to feel good on your burning skin, and all the ashes and stuff in the air is like falling or push it to the ground because of the rain. So I could think that in this situation, rain is not the worst thing that can happen, or am I wrong?
Suddenly appeared.
And maybe he can drink something of it.
Near him, lowered from a helicopter. Moreover, Benson was told that all his friends were alive. The thing that flew past him the day before was a rescue package thrown from a helicopter. Chris Duddy had safely climbed out of the volcano 27 hours after the crash.
No way. He climbed out.
So, it turns out that a string of coincidences can save your life, even when the laws of physics are stacked against you.
That's
a worker
crazy.
from England managed to win a battle against a machine that even the Terminator would have lost. On the day before Christmas 2008, a man named Matthew Lowe was working his factory shift. He was passing by an automized conveyor belt when he noticed his overalls get caught on something. Then, a horrible thing happened. Lowe fell onto the conveyor belt, which started pulling him toward a 13-centimeter opening in a structure. In just a few seconds, the man's entire body disappeared into the narrow tunnel. Only his head remained outside on the other side of the machine. The only thing Matthew had the time to do was to hear the cracking of his bones and think this
hell no!
was the end for him. The machine spewed Lowe's broken body out on the other side, but the man remained conscious. Then, the horrific pain kicked in, and Matthew started screaming. When the other workers ran into the room, they froze with terror. Lowe's back was broken in 2 places. His pelvis, ribs, and both hips were almost completely crushed, and the abdomen, with the internal organs, was torn. Matthew was immediately taken to the hospital, and his partner was advised to prepare for the worst. However, despite all the doctors' predictions, Lowe fought for his life, spending a month at the hospital and going through 6 surgeries. The surgeons literally stitched the man's body back together, and in just 18 months, Matthew could return to work.
He returned to work? I would think he's traumatized. He doesn't even want to work for this company at all. 18 months? This is like 1.5 years. And he doesn't want to work in another job? But what, in my opinion, what I find like really, really incredible is other people, other bodies would have died in that situation. Of course, maybe the machine didn't hit this organ and this organ, otherwise he would have died, but he survived. So, in which, what is the reason why in the same situation another person would die? You know what I mean? What I mean with that question? Is it just the strength of your mind, how much you want to survive, or is it just luck, or is it just what is the reason behind it? Same situation, another person would die. And this is so interesting. Guys, we make the shout out for today. Shout out goes out in this video to the Hey Squad member, Paula Rivers. Thank you very much for your comment. If you want to get a shout out in the next video, just comment down below, and you have to subscribe, of course, yeah? And then maybe you will get the shout out.
Although he was transferred to a different position. The only things reminding him of the catastrophe are the weakness in his right arm and occasional panic attacks.
He can walk on his own without a wheelchair? What?
Lowe's story fully deserves
How is that possible?
to be recreated in a sci-fi movie. Regarding a case that happened to Stephen McCormick, it already happened on screen. On May 21st, 2011, in the town of Opatiki, New Zealand, Mr. McCormick,
New Zealand again?
an experienced driver, was tinkering with his truck. He was right between the car's bumper and a trailer when he slipped and fell. But instead of regular pain, he felt his body blow up like a balloon, getting twice as big. The man's colleagues and his grown-up son came running when they heard his screams. As it turned out, McCormick had fallen onto a brass valve that supplied compressed air to the car's brakes. It punctured the man's buttock, and the pressurized gas entered his body. McCormick's colleagues managed to cut off the air supply and laid the man on the ground. However, as it turned out, the only 2 emergency cars were busy, and Stephen had to spend an entire hour waiting for the medics. When the man got to the hospital,
And he's like big like a balloon? Blown
it
up
became
like a
clear
balloon?
that the air had separated the fat tissue from the muscles and filled the entire space in the abdomen, the chest, around the lungs and the heart, and even behind Stephen's eyelids. The doctors had to push a hose between the ribs right to the lungs so that
Yeah, how do you get that air out of your body?
the man would be able to breathe. The air in his body had to go out the natural way, which took 3 days. After this, McCormick was discharged from the hospital completely healthy, and the only reminder of the incident was a puncture in his buttock. The doctors noted that if the valve had hit any other body part, it could have damaged a blood vessel, and then Stephen McCormick would have died. The man was saved by a total coincidence and couldn't have influenced the situation in any way. A tourist from
He was lucky in a bad luck situation.
Australia, on the other hand, had to decide whether he'd fight for his own life or not. On a Sunday morning in September of 2019, a 54-year-old man went on a short hike to Mount Nebo near Brisbane, Australia. Neil Parker was a seasoned member of the Brisbane Bushwalkers Club and took all the necessary gear with him. Moreover, he'd repeatedly walked that same route, so
I'm disturbed, guys. These cases are crazy.
the thought of telling anyone where he was going didn't even cross his mind. 1 hour and 40 minutes into his hike, he had already started a familiar ascent onto the mountain near a waterfall. Yet for some reason, the normally reliable rocks suddenly started shifting under Neil Parker's feet, and he plunged downward. The man fell 6 meters into a shallow creek, snapping his left leg in half above the ankle and crushing his left wrist. Neil tried to get his cell phone out of his pocket, but it slipped into the water. Then Parker realized he could neither call for help nor expect to be searched for. His only option was to get out himself. Neil used his hiking poles to splint his leg and started crawling. It was so hard, however, that he had to rest after every meter he conquered.
Imagine you broke everything in your body and you still need to rescue yourself because you have no cell phone. You would panic.
Yet Parker
But when you have like adrenaline in your body, the body is able to do a lot of things.
continued crawling, stopping from time to time to eat something and take painkillers. Only 2 days later, on Monday, when Neil Parker didn't show up at work, the search operation began.
Was a German map, Hannover?
Some miracle, someone recalled the man mentioning his plan of going to the mountains. But a helicopter wasn't dispatched until Tuesday morning. Quite soon, the rescuers noticed a man in a creek bed. He was waving something colorful over his head.
They found him?
As it turned out, not only did Neil Parker survive, he'd also climbed for over 3 kilometers from the spot where he'd fallen.
3 kilometers?
He was hoisted aboard the helicopter and transported to the hospital. The doctors admitted that making a splint out of hiking poles was a genius idea. Here's what I think. Neil Parker's situation was horrible, but he had immense experience, food, and painkillers. 28-year-old James Grimes, on the other hand, had to get out of a similar plight without even firm ground under his feet. On November 23rd, 2022, a man got aboard a cruise liner in New Orleans.
Yeah, this bushwalker, he's just survived because of his experience. He exactly knew what he was doing. A lot of other people would have died.
To celebrate the upcoming Thanksgiving. After Sunday,
But it's so dangerous to do these trips at your own because like when something happened, no one can help you. You need your cell phone, and he lost his cell phone, so he has to help himself. And sometimes you're not able.
down, James had a few cocktails and
Maybe the guy in the desert, with the movie 127 hours, I guess, and he cutted his arm in front of his eyes because it was like between 2 stones, and he survived. He cutted his arm, fully conscious. This is crazy, and maybe this story will be here in this video as well.
decided to go to
But it's such a popular story because like everyone knows of that guy.
the bathroom. The next moment, the man regained consciousness only to find himself in the boundless waters of the Gulf of Mexico. Grimes started panicking. He couldn't recall falling off the ship and didn't know what to do. At first, the man hoped his absence would get noticed soon and the line would come back to get him. But after spending the entire night in the water, he realized it wouldn't happen. During that time, a large group of jellyfish badly stung James's body. And when the sun rose,
Oh, imagine you're alone in the ocean. No help, nothing. You have to swim. Like to be like injured on land is something different. Like you're lost in the ocean and then under your body you look down. It's full of poisonous jellyfishes. Oh. Guys, this is like a scenario of my biggest nightmare.
New trials awaited Grimes. He noticed a fin nearby and went pale with terror. A shark was approaching him. Then something touched his foot. He kicked it hard, held his breath, and prepared to die. But nothing happened. And the shark, if it was one, never returned. Suddenly, James saw two...
Yeah, as the most people know, sharks do not usually eat humans. They do not need humans for food. They just think you're something else, or the shark thinks it is threatened or in danger or something, and then they will attack you. But actually, they're not killing you by purpose to eat you.
Ships on the horizon. He swam toward them for hours, thinking of his 9-year-old daughter and coming up with songs for her. All the while, the ruthless sun was burning Grimes' skin, and when James had already spent 20 hours in the water and was losing hope of ever seeing his family again, a lifeline landed near him. The man used all of his remaining energy to try and grab it, but the mighty waves did not allow him to. Eventually, a Coast Guard helicopter started circling over James, and rescuers took hold of him. One of them noticed that Grimes had 1 minute at most before dying of hypothermia in the ice-cold water. But I don't think this is the most incredible story in this video. Do you believe it's possible to get caught in a storm at a cruising altitude and survive? On February 14th,
He was 20 hours in the cold water and survived. Like after 20 hours, you're losing hope. You have like every thought. You just need to stay brave, stay strong, and just hope that someone will find you. This is so crazy.
2007, in the small Australian town of Manila, a world skydiving champion, Eva Wisniewska, was preparing to defend her title for the nth time. The sky was absolutely clear that day despite forecasts of a violent storm. However, when the woman took to the sky, the weather quickly deteriorated and clouds appeared around her. Eva directed her paraglider under one of them when suddenly she felt a fierce, invisible force get a hold of her. At a speed of 20 meters per second, the woman was flying upward, right into the storm's epicenter. This is a natural phenomenon called cloud suck, when the warm air from beneath suddenly rises to the cold air. First, Eva only saw lightning bolts around her, and then she was completely covered by the pitch-black darkness. The abrupt pressure change caused the woman to go unconscious.
Oh my gosh, and you're like alone with this thing up in the clouds. Oh, I would panic.
She couldn't feel the hail hit her while the 50-degree frost was covering her skin with ice. In the end, Eva was sucked
Minus 50 degrees Celsius?
onto almost the cruising altitude of a jet plane, 9,947 meters. There's so little oxygen there that the human body starts literally dying cell by cell.
Yeah.
For Eva, this meant almost
It's called the death zone.
100% certainty of death. Yet, almost an hour later, the woman came around and realized she was now hurtling toward death on a paraglider that was out of control. At some point, Eva's descent speed reached 33 meters per second, but suddenly, the fall slowed down, and the athlete managed to land only 60 kilometers away from where she'd started. The woman's entire body was covered in bruises from the hail, and she had severe frostbite on her face, ears, and extremities. Wisniewska's survival has been compared to winning the lottery 10 times in a row.
The chance to survive is like winning the lottery like 10 times in a row? No way! Just how did she manage that? To survive? This is so crazy.
It was nothing short of a miracle. However, I've saved the most incredible story for the very end. Not even doctors can explain how Anna Bagenholm managed to come back to life. In May of 1999, a Swedish radiologist was skiing in the mountains near Narvik in Norway.
Oh, it's north of Norway.
She was an experienced skier, had been on those slopes multiple times before, and was accompanied by her 2 colleagues.
These ski professionals, they are crazy, like in the nature. It's so dangerous, anything can happen, and they're very alone in the nature.
This spared her from a tragic coincidence. On that day, Anna lost control of her skis and fell. The woman landed on her back in a frozen stream, broke 20 centimeters of ice with her head, and her entire body sank into the water. Only
In ice cold water, upside down.
Bogenholm's feet and skis remained above the surface. Anna's colleagues immediately rushed to help her, but failed to get the woman out of her ice trap. So they called the rescuers. Panicked, Bogenholm was thrashing against the ice when suddenly she managed to find an air pocket nearby and start breathing again. She spent 40 minutes like that.
You will tell me she survived. She spent 14 minutes in that position in ice cold water, upside down.
Fully conscious and awaiting rescue. However, she never managed to see it. She passed out, and her colleagues were unable to tell whether Anna was still alive. Yet the rescuers took another 40 minutes to get the woman out of the water. So, she had no chance of survival.
No.
When Bogenholm was
40 minutes, no.
brought to the hospital, her body temperature had hit a new record low in the history of medicine, 13.7 degrees Celsius.
The biggest low in human history. Her body was 13.7 degrees Celsius. The usual temperature is like between 35 and 40 degrees Celsius. And she survived? Man! What is that body for a machine?
A few hours the doctors spent trying to resuscitate the woman yielded no results. However, in the cold country of Norway, medical practitioners have a rule: to warm the patient up before declaring their death. So, a team of over 100 specialists worked in shifts for 9 hours, trying to bring Anna's body temperature back to normal, when suddenly her pulse reappeared. This seemed absolutely impossible.
Yeah.
But the doctors weren't too
This is like a movie, like a film. This cannot be possible. This cannot be real.
quick to be optimistic.
Imagine you're standing there and you gave up. You tried it for 9 hours. The body was like 13 degrees Celsius, and she came back to life. That feeling must be incredible.
Bogenholm had been dead for too long, and the human brain experiences irreversible damage after
Yes, I've heard that as
20
well.
minutes without
After 20 minutes.
oxygen at the
Yes.
longest. However, Anna spent the following 35 days connected to a ventilator and regained consciousness. It's incredible, but no damage was found in her brain.
Super brain.
Yet the woman was paralyzed below her neck. 29-year-old Anna was aghast at the idea of spending the rest of her life bedridden, and was very angry with the doctors for having saved her at all. However, after another month in intensive care and lengthy rehabilitation, Anna Bogenholm had an almost complete recovery. Most people who go through hypothermia don't survive, even if doctors manage to get their heart going again. What happened to Anna is a medical miracle. I've told you so many.
This is a medical miracle. Guys, this is all for today with lucky people who survived the possible. This is crazy. Guys, thank you so much for watching. My name is Mats. We're the Hey Squad, the best community in the world. Uploads every day. Thanks and see you tomorrow. Bye bye.